If you're looking to buy a compact SUV built by an American car company, the Ford Escape has always been kind of the go-to vehicle. In Ford's North American lineup, this model consistently moves right around 300,000 units every year, which is why I'm standing by the all-new version of the Escape for 2020. This is now the fourth generation model. Ford says it's riding on an all-new platform. It's got new styling, front and rear. It marks the return of the hybrid and a new plug-in hybrid variant, and the company is claiming this is the sleekest and sportiest Escape that they've ever produced. Now, the compact SUV segment has been steadily growing as the family car of choice here in America. So the big question I want to answer, if you guys are looking to buy a new compact SUV, does the new Ford Escape stand out from its Japanese and Korean peers? That's what we're here to find out. Now, a couple years ago, Ford made the controversial move to discontinue basically all of their passenger cars here in North America, which is why the new Escape has a very different design. And I'll be honest here, when I first saw the look of this 2020 model, I was a bit confused because it really is different versus the previous generation and, of course, the boxy generation of the 2008 Ford Escape. The design of this new one definitely has some confusing elements. I see what Ford is doing here. They're trying to make this car look more like a car in order to appeal to those buyers who probably wanted to buy a Fiesta or a Focus. Some of you have told me in the comments that it looks kind of like a Porsche mixed with a Kia and maybe even some Volkswagen. There are definitely some weird looking elements on this car. So let's start with some of the basics of this titanium trim, which is the top of the line model. You can see it's got these full LED headlights. Geese. As you can see, it's got these full LED headlights, which are very, very trippy looking. They actually remind me a lot of some Porsche, maybe even some Acura with the jewel eye LEDs. These LED headlights are standard on the titanium. You also have an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, and LED fog lights. I like the fact that Ford has finally put some, modern looking headlights. The previous generation Escape, I believe, only had a bi-xenon look. If you look at the rest of the front fascia, you'll notice that the new Escape looks a lot lower and a lot wider because it's actually about an inch wider and about 2 inches lower. It has the same corporate, Ford grille as well with, the chrome trim kind of surrounding it. Some of you actually may see a little hints of the Ford Focus and Fiesta in the fascia. It has a very similar look to it, but again, it's very confusing. To me, it looks like, a mashup of a Korean and a German car, with a Ford emblem at the front. Now, looking at the rest of the profile of the Escape, it gets also, again, a little more confusing because unlike the previous generation, which sat up nice and tall, or the boxier one before it, this to me kind of just looks like a bloated up Ford Focus from the side angles. It looks kind of like a bloated up, raised up hatchback. Again, some of you may think that you like the design. Looks are always subjective. Ford, regardless, made the vehicle larger for 2020. Its wheelbase is about an inch longer at 106.7 inches long, and its overall length at 180 inches long is about 2 inches longer than the previous generation. This is still kind of on the shorter end of the compact segment, but you can really tell that they made this vehicle about 2 inches lower to give this thing, again, more of like a crossover look. Now, my tester here, being the titanium, has these 19-inch wheels. These are kind of an optional wheel on some of the other trims. They're wrapped in two 25 width tires. I actually think the wheels look a little small, surprisingly. Some crossovers offer a little bit more sidewall tread, but it's probably there again to give you a comfortable ride. Ford, I think, listed the ground clearance on this thing at a little over 7.5 inches. So it's on the lower end of the scale in terms of ground clearance. And really standing it from this angle, I can really tell how much lower the car is from the previous generation, which I'm not entirely sure I like. What I do like, however, this massively large panoramic sunroof that my tester has, which definitely, makes this thing have a much open and airier cabin. Now, if you want to follow me over to the rear of the vehicle, you can see Ford definitely went with an interesting design theme here. I see some hints of Mazda and Volkswagen here. The taillights are kind of like an LED combination where the brake light is LED, however, not the turn signals or the reverse lights. Escape is kind of spelled out at the back here, which is kind of mimicking the Ford Explorer. You have a plastic bumper trim area here to give it more, I guess, of a rugged look. And then surprisingly, Ford gives you dual exhaust tips even on this hybrid model, which, by the way, the titanium comes standard with the hybrid powertrain, and then you can option in a 2-liter turbo if you'd like. We'll talk about that when we go under the hood. Now, opening up the cargo area, Ford was the one that pioneered that foot activated kicking power liftgate, which is still here if you have the key on you, or you can also just open it traditionally, and you can see obviously there's a power liftgate. Now, because the car has a less boxy shape, the cargo area actually was reduced back here. Now, surprisingly, with the seats up right here, you get around 30.8 cubic feet of space. The hybrid model actually has less because the battery packs live underneath the floor over here and kind of underneath the rear seat. If you guys go for the non-hybrid model, you get around 35 cubic feet of space, which is actually very competitive with the segment. However, it does look a little bit smaller. Now, if you want to fold down all the seats, Ford says you get around 60 cubic feet of space. Again, it drops by about 5 cubic feet if you guys go for the hybrid version of this vehicle. Now, for comparison, vehicles like the CR-V, the RAV4, and the Subaru Forester offer about 10 to 15 more cubic feet of space. So just keep that in mind if you guys are looking for a crossover that has the most maximum amount of space. So the outside of the new Escape may look a little bit confusing, but what about the interior of this new model? Now, first getting in, let me shut the door. It has a very solid thunk to it, which again, this is a new platform, so I expected Ford to, make this thing a very solid feeling vehicle. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, this particular one here is the titanium version, so it's the top of the line. It also comes with this smart key access system with push button start. You can see this is the current Ford key fob. It includes a remote start. You can open up the rear trunk, lock, unlock, and panic. It's a fairly massive key. It is standard on the titanium version. When you start the vehicle up, you can hear there's no starter noise because this is the hybrid model, so it's just going to kind of whir to life. It's going to say ready to drive in the instrument panel. And I'll be honest here, when I first saw the interior of this model at the auto show, there were some elements about it that I liked. I like the tablet style screen here. It looks really nice as well with the Sync 3 and the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Then I started poking around the interior of a lower trim model, and it was pretty cheap on the inside. This one here, the titanium, is a little bit better. The dash is actually a kind of a soft touch injection molded plastic, but it's a little bit more rubberized. It's not quite as nice as some of the interiors you feel like in the Mazda CX-5. This wood trim here is definitely not going to confuse or fool anybody. It's a fake wood, although it has a better texturized feel than the wood you find in the CR-V. Soft touch over here. The door panels are also soft touch as well. Kind of has the same material as the dashboard. But again, keep in mind the lower trims are going to have hard touch plastic everywhere. And then the windows here are one touch for the driver, one touch for the passenger front, and then one touch for the back, which is actually really nice. I wasn't expecting to be one touch for all four. But then there's a couple of elements in here where this is, obviously trying to be like a car-like vehicle. But if you look at the door panel over here, there's this texturized trim here on the actual part of the door. This reminds me a lot of a 2008 Ford Escape. If you guys remember that generation, it was very boxy. It was very rugged looking. It's kind of confusing in here as well with, including that detail, which is kind of showing the lineage, but, Ford again is trying to go with more of a car-like route here, and then they're including some of those, rugged themes over there. Now, the steering wheel, you can see this is the same steering wheel that you've seen on other Ford products. It also has a tilt and telescoping function, which has a pretty good amount of adjustability. The seats that I'm sitting in over here, these are kind of a 10-way power seat with only heat. There's a three-level heated function. Ford, unfortunately, does not offer cooled seats on this vehicle, which is a little disappointing considering the price point, but you do get 3-person memory, which is nice. Most competitors only offer a 2-person memory. My tester here also has the upgraded Bang & Olufsen sound system with about 10 speakers. I was actually kind of disappointed with the sound quality. I've heard much better sound quality speakers in like the Mazda, for example. The Toyota RAV4 with its JBL sounds a little bit better, so keep that in mind if you guys are looking for the best sounding sound system. Now, looking at the rest of this infotainment stack, you can see I'm really glad that Ford didn't go with that massive, 12-inch iPad tablet that's in the new Ford Explorer. This is more modest at 8 inches, but you can see here the screen's clarity has definitely been improved. You can see if you pull up Waze, this is a really, crystal clear screen. This has the latest version of CarPlay, of course, loaded up. It's relatively snappy and quick. However, let's go back to the Ford Sync system because I found that the Ford Sync system can be a little bit laggy. For example, when you turn up the volume and whatnot, sometimes the menus will be slow to pop up. If I start changing the station and I start twisting the knob too fast, I can actually surpass the speed of the system and it just gets lost. It has a really annoying lag that I found to be really frustrating in day-to-day use. Also, the Apple CarPlay, which is working right now, when I first got in this car and I plugged in my phone, it wouldn't even load Apple CarPlay. I had to cycle it on and off a few times to get it to load. If you want to go to the actual Ford map, you can't actually be plugged into CarPlay, which is really frustrating. For example, this car does have factory embedded navigation, but if I hit maps with my phone connected, it won't let me actually show the Ford map. I have to unplug my phone and then go to map, and then it'll show me the actual Ford map, which again, I tapped it there and it was really slow to load. So I have my issues with Sync 3. I was hoping they would have fixed it by now. It's still not the best system in terms of speed. A lot of other competitors are much better at that, but you can see there's the Ford GPS, which looks okay. Most of you will probably be using the Apple CarPlay anyways. Now over here, down at the controls, you can see you have some redundant controls here for your audio, which is nice. A nice tuning and volume knob, which I like. You have dual zone climate control with 2 big knobs over here as well. Your heated seats and heated steering wheel button is over here, which again, what is this empty button here for? I wish Ford had offered cooled seats on this car. There is a nice little area here where you can put your phone. And I believe there is the option of a wireless charger. I don't see that this one is a wireless charger. The Ford Escape actually uses a USB-C connection here. So if you want to plug in your phone, you have to plug it in with a USB-C cord. Now over here at the center stack, I like this material that they're using for around the gear shifter. You can see it's got that new knob that Ford's been using for their gear selector, which some of you don't like, some of you like. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see the backup camera is pretty good in terms of its resolution. Ford does not offer, looks like a 360 camera, but you do have parking sensors. You also have active park assist 2.0. So Ford, remember, was one of the first manufacturers to parallel park itself for you, and they've been perfecting it over the years. The rest of this center stack here, you can see there's a button for your drive mode selector. If you push this button over here and then go to the instrument panel, it'll cycle between a normal, an eco, a sport, a slippery, and a deep snow and sand mode, which again, the graphics look very much similar to what you see in the new Explorer, but it's really nice that it actually moves quickly. If you guys remember my review on the Explorer, it was a little bit laggy at times when you were cycling through the drive mode, so at least Ford kind of beefed that up here. They just need to beef up the speed of the Sync 3, which would be nice. The armrest over here is nice and padded, which is good. If you open this up, you can see it has a lot of storage in there, and you have a traditional USB port in there. No other charging outlet. There's no 12 volt. The 12 volt is located over here. The seats on this particular one, I actually find them to be pretty comfortable. They have kind of this two-tone leather look with the contrast stitching, which also looks nice. I like how, you know, this has the black exterior, but the kind of beige and black interior. The glove compartment, you can see, is a pretty good size. It's damped, but not lined with felt. It's pretty much average for the segment. And then above me, my tester has this massive panoramic sunroof, which goes all the way into the back seat, really lets in a lot of light. It is standard, of course, on this titanium, probably like a $2,000 option if you guys go for other trims. So overall, the interior of the Escape has most of the technology that you want, with the heads-up display, with a nice screen. However, it's missing things like cooled seats. It does feel a little bit smaller than some of the competition as well. Some competition offers just a little bit more space. But if you guys are looking for something that's very familiar, you can kind of get into this interior and just know how to use a lot of the features. So for 2020, Ford lengthened the wheelbase of this new Escape by about 1 inch, so they were able to give us some additional space in the back seat of this new model. Now, the new addition for this generation is the fact that Ford has added sliding and reclining back seats. Now, this is a very generous feature. You typically don't find sliding and reclining seats, which offers a lot of adjustability back here. You can actually, you know, give the passengers more space, or you can slide it up to give more cargo area in the actual trunk capacity. Ford says the legroom back here is around 37.5 inches, which is pretty good, but you should know that some competitors offer as much as 40 inches. I also don't particularly find the seats to be comfortable for me. They feel a little bit hard. Also, they don't exactly have enough thigh support for me, which, you know, some of you may find that to be a problem, especially if you have long legs. In terms of features back here, you can see there's an armrest that folds down. There's two cup holders. This particular one has rear seat air vents. There's also a standard household power outlet, but no USB ports back here. I was surprised. In this vehicle, I only found 2 USB ports, which is kind of a problem. A lot of competitors offer far more in terms of USBs. The materials back here, fortunately, are hard touch plastic. That's kind of the stuff that's in the base models. It's on the front doors. So again, Ford is skimping a little on the quality. You do have just one map pocket as well, but thankfully, you know, I have plenty of headroom, even though there's a panoramic sunroof, and you have the option to kind of recline the seat. There's a lot of LED lighting in here. So the back seat is usable, but it's definitely not class leading like what you'll find in some of the competition. So the new Escape has an all new platform, so you can expect that there are new powertrains when you lift up the hood. Now, opening up the hood of my particular tester, this is the hybrid powertrain. Now, if you guys want to look at the base engine, it's actually a 1.5 liter EcoBoost turbocharged engine that makes about 180 horsepower. This is pretty much the carryover engine from the previous generation. It makes a little bit more power this year, of course. The upgraded engine is going to be a 2 liter EcoBoost turbocharged 4-cylinder. That makes 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. That's the motor that I wish was underneath the hood of this particular one. However, this titanium version comes standard with the hybrid powertrain, which is essentially the same powertrain that's in the Ford Fusion hybrid. It's a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that runs on the Atkinson cycle, paired with an 88 kilowatt electric motor. Now, Ford says the combined output here is around 200 horsepower when you kind of mix everything together, and the torque figure is about 155 pound-feet of torque, which is actually a pretty low torque figure. Now, the new story, of course, with this generation is an all-new plug-in hybrid version. The plug-in hybrid basically has this powertrain with a beefier electric motor. There are 2 electric motors, of course, because this car is all-wheel drive. That one will make about 221 horsepower and offer about 30 miles of range. Now, the gas engines will tow a maximum of around 3,500 pounds. This hybrid version will tow actually 1,500 pounds, so you can still tow even when you have the hybrid version. In fuel economy, Ford says the gas engine will range from about 26 in the city, 31 on the highway, or 23, 31, to about 43 in the city and 37 on the highway for this hybrid version with all-wheel drive. This is very good gas mileage. It pretty much matches that from what you're going to get in the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. The Honda CR-V hybrid, we haven't actually gotten an EPA figure yet. I'll be driving that vehicle later next month. The plug-in hybrid does not have an actual EPA rating yet, which Ford says that model will go on sale in the spring of this year. As this one sits, it is relatively heavy. It weighs around 3,800 pounds because of the battery pack and whatnot, but this one here with all-wheel drive, it's paired with a CVT transmission. All the other gas escapes will use an 8-speed automatic transmission. So let's get this on the road and see how it performs. So the last Ford Escape hybrid that I drove was easily over a decade ago. That's because Ford never did a hybrid version of the 3rd generation Escape. Instead, they introduced their EcoBoost engines. Ford said they didn't need to do a hybrid. So now, because there's so many more hybrids on the market, the Escape hybrid is back. And this is actually my first time driving the all-new 4th generation Escape. And I have to say, the styling of this car still haven't really warmed up to it, as I said earlier. I think the exterior has some hints of a Porsche Macan, but also looks like a European hatchback. I just think that I prefer the blockier styling, the boxier styling that you get with the RAV4. This tries to more look like a car because Ford probably felt guilty that they got rid of all their cars. But regardless, the interior of the new Escape is certainly a nice place to spend time. I'm noticing that the seats are pretty comfortable. Visibility in here is good. The car feels nice and small and planted and maneuverable, and visibility out of the front is good, although this A-pillar here is rather big. It's very the typical norm with Ford products that I drive. Got a big A-pillar over here. The ride quality on the new Escape is also surprisingly firm on this hybrid model. I mean, this titanium has 19-inch wheels, and I kind of notice it's a little stiff. Like, it's stiffer than what I expected it to be. But other than that, you can tell that Ford has made the refinement better with this new version. I really need to drive the EcoBoost 1.5 and the EcoBoost 2-liter. However, there are rumors of an ST coming, a high-performance version. So if you do that, Ford, please do that. Now, the hybrid version, I have to say, is very much a competent compact SUV. There isn't really much about this car that kind of stands out to me. I mean, compared to the last RAV4 hybrid that I drove, when I put my foot down here, you have that typical kind of hybrid delay that you get with hybrid vehicles. And the powertrain in this vehicle is very similar to the one that you get in the Ford Fusion. I mean, it's a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It's got a CVT that's pairing that power. It's got the 2 electric motors with all-wheel drive, with 200 horsepower and 155 pound-feet of torque. This thing feels, you know, okay in terms of power. I think the last RAV4 hybrid that I drove was a little bit quicker, but really, I'm not the biggest fan of the buzziness that you get with the engine, and maybe that's just my my take on hybrids, and I don't like the buzziness, and there's just kind of a little bit of a delay when you put your foot down. I imagine the EcoBoost 2-liter is probably going to make the Escape one of the more pleasant cars to drive. There's also a plug-in hybrid version that has a stronger electric motor that gives you about 21 more horsepower than this one. I suspect 0 to 60 for this vehicle feels like around 8 seconds, which definitely feels more sluggish than the RAV4. I'll be driving the new CR-V hybrid in early March, so that's not on sale yet just now. Ford says the Escape plug-in hybrid will also go on sale in the spring of this year. Now, in terms of the steering feel in this car, Ford says that they made this sportier, and I can tell that the steering is quicker than the last Escape that I drove. The car kind of feels a little bit on the tall end. Even though they made this one like an inch lower, I still feel like I'm sitting up a little tall. Which is fine. This is a crossover, but I guess Ford tried to make it look a little bit more like a sedan or a hatchback on the outside, so I wanted a little bit more of a planted feeling. But again, with an SUV, people want the higher seating position. That's very important to them. But just the steering feel, the handling of this car, the Escape seems like it's ready for an ST version. I just can't really get a good gauge for it when I'm driving this hybrid model. The hybrid model, every time I put my foot down, there's a little bit of lag, but then once it kind of puts the engine in the meat of its power band, this thing does get up to speed very nicely. You just have to kind of deal with the buzz of the engine, which isn't all the most pleasant. This car does come with a plethora of driver assistance stuff. You've got the Ford Co-Pilot 360, which is standard on this model. It's got lane keep assist, it's got adaptive cruise control, it's got active automatic parallel parking 2.0. It's got this new heads-up display, which is nice, although I don't really care for the plexiglass screen that this car gives you with, that it flips up. Some of you prefer just an actual windshield projection, but this is kind of more of the scaled down, more economical version of, you know, a heads-up display from Ford. And again, I'll put my foot down here. Decent acceleration, but I think the hybrid model is probably the one that I shouldn't have driven first. I should have driven the gas model first. So Ford, if you're watching this, send me over the gas model first. But take this corner here and put my foot down. There's no wheel spin at all. The all-wheel drive just puts the power down nicely, and you get this surge of torque. So if you guys have, you know, been used to driving hybrids, the Escape Hybrid is a welcome addition. The battery pack is smaller, you get a little bit more power, you get 43 mpg in this thing, which is good. And in my weeks worth of testing, I actually averaged right around 35, 36 mpg. Now, I probably haven't been driving the most economically, but this thing is relatively fun to drive. It has a nice interior with the latest tech, although this particular one is missing cooled seats. Not all the competitors offer cooled seats, but at least you get, you know, an 8-way or 10-way power with 3-person memory, heated seats, heated steering wheel, you know, nice crystal clear display, although the Sync 3 can still be a little bit laggy at times. Overall, you know, between this, the RAV4 hybrid, the new CR-V hybrid, the Escape is definitely worth a look. If you guys, you know, like the look of this car, you really like the Escape, Ford constantly sells, you know, over 250,000 of these, and I wouldn't hesitate to believe that they probably won't do at least that and maybe more for the 2020 model year. So while the all-new 2020 Escape styling may not be as distinctive as the generations before it, this is still a relatively competitive compact SUV. And once you kind of get past the looks, as you guys saw, it still drives and handles and rides relatively nicely. It has an interior that is full of the modern tech conveniences, and it also looks pretty good from certain angles. As long as you guys go for the higher trim, it'll be filled with slightly better interior materials. The space on the inside definitely isn't the class leading in terms of cargo, in terms of the actual room between, you know, the rear seats and in the front seats. However, the Escape has a nice car-like demeanor, which the old one didn't quite have as much, and I look forward to the fact that Ford may be offering this vehicle as an ST version. That's right, a performance version of the Escape may be coming later in the year, because if you guys remember, there was a Focus and a Fiesta ST, and if this is going to be kind of like the car-like entry in the Ford lineup, they will probably consider doing an ST version with more horsepower, of course, versus the 2-liter turbo that you can get as the top engine right now. Now, keep in mind, this generation is going to be the basis of the Bronco Sport, which is probably why Ford decided to go with a more car-like route, because the Bronco Sport will probably have more of that truck-like rugged image to it. And as you guys saw, the platform is a good start for this vehicle, but it is a relatively confusing car if you guys own the previous generation. My recommendation, I'd probably wait for the Bronco version of this car just to see how it looks, just to see some of the changes that Ford decides to make, or wait for the ST version, because it is definitely going to be a unique offering in the compact SUV segment. Now, with all that said, if you guys are looking to buy the new Escape today, what's it gonna cost? Well, this new version definitely isn't as cheap as the previous generation. In fact, the new Escape is probably more expensive than most of the competition. This car starts at just under $25,000, so $24,800 for the base S version. This titanium model, of course, has most of the bells and whistles, but Ford tends to also offer options that will raise the price. A titanium will start at around $34,900, so $10,000 more than the base S with the 1.5 and front-wheel drive. All-wheel drive is about a $1,500 option, depending on the trim level that you guys decide to go for. Now, my tester here has a premium package for like a $2,000, and then the panoramic Vista roof for another $1,500. All in, this one here is stickers for around $37,900, which is a lot of money. Actually, I had a little bit of sticker shock with the new Escape, but if you compare its competition, like the Mazda CX-5, the Toyota RAV4, and the Honda CR-V, they're gonna be roughly between $35,000 to $40,000 as well. I just don't feel that the Ford Escape's design is as distinctive enough for me to choose this vehicle over a lot of the very competitive offerings. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2020 Ford Escape Titanium Hybrid. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.